Hassan II was 38 years, and so far Mohammed VI is 12 years. Gaddafi ruled from 69, which is about 42 years, so they were ruling around the same time, as well as Mubarak was 75 to 81, and Nasser was 54 to 70. So I always wonder what would it have been like to be in the conversation between all of them. You know, they spent years ruling pretty much as neighbors, and for so many years, you know, here we think someone gets their second term, wow, year number 5. And I just think what it must be like to be in your 40th year of ruling, and what that does to a country and what that allows or doesn't allow. Another thing that I found amazing, this is a store. These are artifacts that we found in a store in Marrakesh. We were just walking down the street and we turned in and we saw all of these things. And it was a strange feeling that someone was selling a mezuzah or a yacht or a Torah, and the guy really wanted to sell them to us. And Moroccans are very good sellers. And I just thought about how many Jews had been in Morocco. In 1950, 10% of Morocco was Jewish, and Jews were integrated in the city. They were part of agriculture, part of trade. According to Moroccan Jews I spoke to, and one of my friends, his father moved from Morocco to Israel, and now he's raising his children here in Los Angeles. His father actually went to Israel on vacation for 2 weeks, and he had a blind date with a woman from Iraq. And he liked her so much, he moved to Israel and they got married and had children, and she's still living in Israel. But according to them, the Moroccan Jews, many of them left at the start of the country of Israel, and according to them, Israel paid King Hassan V $100 per passport for the Jews that moved to Israel. They needed to populate Israel, and they convinced a lot of Moroccans at that time to leave. Today, there's less than 5,000 Jews, and 99% of Morocco is Muslim. But I also learned something I had no idea, that there are 25 different types. That just like being Jewish, we're here at our Reform Synagogue, we have Orthodox Synagogue, and for some of us to go from one to the other would be an almost foreign experience, and that there are different ways. I thought that was very interesting. I'd like to go to a talk on that. So this is inside the synagogue in Marrakesh. I met the caretaker and I spoke to him in Hebrew, and he invited us to come for Shabbat and also for Passover. So I really found this to be a really beautiful, it's on a quiet street, and I thought it was so lovely to be invited. We were for Passover in the desert, so we weren't able to be with them, but it was a really wonderful place. So I definitely look forward to going back there, and I know there's a few people going to Morocco in the next couple of months. I definitely suggest that you see them. So this is one of my favorite nights. We literally rocked the Kasbah. We were there for the ultra marathon. It was started at 3 o'clock with 200 runners. And the last runner came in at 9 o'clock, and it was really lovely. It's an international marathon. This last year was the 3rd year, and they call it the door to the desert. And they announced in French, Arabic, and English. But the last runner who came in was German, and many of the runners went out and ran him in. We couldn't imagine how they were running. It was hot. One day when we were on the bus, it was 99 degrees on the bus. But they had a DJ, Mr. Joe. And we enjoyed the crowd, and we danced, and tried to take some secret pictures of the police that were walking around. And I talked to someone that night about rights of women in Morocco, and she told me that under King Mohammed VI, in 2004, so about 7 years ago, there's something called Mudawana, which is family code, and women got the right to property and divorce.
Lisa?
Yes.
Where was that photo taken?
This is Warwazat. In Warwazat, the Kasbah. I have some other pictures of Warwazat, but this is it's the Hollywood. I have another picture of Abe Ben Haddo in Warwazat that is my definitely Hollywood slide, but this is Warwazat, which is very hard to spell. So here is the Oasis of Flint and Todra Gorge, and I love the Oasis of Flint. This is close to Ouarzazate, and here was an amazing oasis. We ate dates and beans and almonds, and we saw onions and palms and carrots growing. So George and I, you can see in the bottom, we're making music. And I wore a hamsa that I had bought in Marrakesh, and we played music, and so they called us Fatima Couscous and Muhammad Tajin. So Fatima is the daughter of Muhammad the Prophet, and so I thought that was very kind that they enjoyed us, that they wanted to rename us. George actually often renames himself in different countries because George is not a name of everywhere. Lisa is. In Indonesia, Lisa's a name, George isn't a name, so we call him Torch. So when you introduce yourself as Lisa and Torch, they say, wow, you both have Indonesian names. Such a surprise. So one of the words that I learned in this area is Hamdulillah, which is one of my favorite things. Hamdulillah, which means go with God. And the people are very interested to talk about religion and to talk to Americans. The one thing I have to say about Todra Gorge, it's very beautiful at night. During the day when we were there, we stayed, but some people come in just to visit on the tour bus. And with 12 tour buses in Todra Gorge, I felt a little bit like I was in Disneyland. But it worked out. So this is the slide I was thinking of when you asked about where was it, Ouarzazate. This is 8 Ben Haddo. And this might look familiar to you because it was partially rebuilt for the film Jesus of Nazareth. So lately there's been a lot of movies made in Morocco, particularly the recent ones, Inception and Sex and the City 2, have given Morocco a lot of press about how beautiful it is and how much there is to see in Morocco. We went on a tour to the Oasis of Flint in 8 Ben Haddo with a company called Farhana, which means happy. And our guide, Hashem, had worked on 2 films. So he was talking to us about Leonardo DiCaprio and all the famous people that were in Morocco. When we were in 8 Ben Haddo, I saw a talib for sale. There was a laundry line and a couple of purses and a scarf for sale. And it was amazing to me. The man says to me, do you know what this is? And I said, yes. Do you know what this is? So there are Jewish artifacts all over Morocco, the things that we found in the stores and the things that we found in 8 Ben Haddo. One of the most amazing things that I found about Morocco is the mix of old and new. So when we were in Fez, wandering the labyrinth, they were delivering Coca-Cola by mule. Because there's tiny roadways, and they call it a labyrinth, and it definitely is. And then you have newer cities, like Rabat, or in parts of Meknes, where you see in the bottom corner, the Nouvelle Ville, the areas that were built during the French Protectorate times. 51% of people live in urban areas. There's Pizza Hut, Kentucky Fried Chicken, outdoor cafes. But you can also see in this slide the tannery. And the tannery, they make leather, beautiful leather, in the old ways. They use a pungent mixture of pigeon poop and cow urine. It smells really good there. So the leather is 7 days in the limestone vats and 5 days in the color with many washes. And you can see the man literally in the vat. So it's amazing to be there and see it. In the top corner you can see George and I were wandering around, and we ended up in this plaza where they were selling, auctioning the leather. So we saw these men carrying huge bundles of yellow-looking, red-looking, white leather, and we followed them, and we found this area where you can see all of these men there auctioning off the leather, the hides, and a guide, someone adopted us and was explaining to us what happened. He also gave us a big Moroccan Arabic lesson. I learned to say a lot of things like mother, father. It was very impressive, but I can't tell you them now. We have another lesson later.